Welcome back to the NFL NBA Rectable. Ask Kevin Dana, and I'm Alan Wu. This is our NFL edition where we'll be going over Week 2, and we're doing things a little differently, going to break down some of the divisions that are making some of the headlines across the nation. So, starting off with the AFC East, of course, the big question going into this week, Matt Castle, starting in his first game since high school, how would he do and how would this affect the division? Well, the New England Patriots beat the New York Jets. So, Kevin, I ask you, are the Patriots still the team to beat in this division?
I think they definitely are, and they proved it playing against the New York Jets on the road this past week and beating them 19-10. And Matt Castle, sure, he didn't give a Brady-like performance, but he was more than sufficient for them. 16 for 23, 165 yards, didn't turn the ball over, and did more than just manage the game. He really kept that offense going on a nice flow.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing was that, you can't replace Tom Brady, but what you do is he stepped in, he was able to allow the rest of the talent on that team to help lead that team to victory, especially that defense. They really came out and were able to, clamp down on the Jets, make sure that Brett Favre, he had a few moments, but they made sure he wasn't, going off in typical Brett Favre fashion. So I think that, with this win, until they are beaten, like they always say, until the champion's beaten, they're still the team to beat. So in this division, I think they're still the team to beat. Although I think the Jets are going to be improved. They're going to be right there with them, in the mix. I still don't know whether or not they can take this division. Losing to New England, of course, a big loss for them. But with Brett Favre, I think they've made some strides compared to where they were last year. How do you think the Jets are going to do?
Honestly, while I think the Jets are a much improved team from the 4-12 2007 campaign, I don't think they're going to be contending for that division spot. I think they're going to be at least 2 or 3 games back, and I think they're the third best team in that division. We'll get to the Buffalo Bills in a little bit, but you mentioned the loss to New England. They had a lot of trouble with the Miami Dolphins, who looked terrible this week against Arizona. So I'm not really sold on the Jets being in the top half of that division, let alone competing for the division crown.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure about that either, but my point was, I think they'll be in the mix. I think they're going to be closer to the top than they will be to the bottom, although with Miami there, the bottom's going to be a far way down. But you mentioned that other team, Buffalo, and they've looked really impressive these past 2 weeks, and doing what a good team's supposed to do. They absolutely blew out Seattle in that first game at home, and then this week they won a tough game in Jacksonville. The Jaguars going into this season thought by some to be, able to contend with Indianapolis for the AFC South division title. But, of course, the shooting with Jason Collier, their offensive tackle, has sort of thrown that team for a loop. But they're still a very talented team, and the way that the Bills came back, they looked pretty impressive this past week.
They definitely did. Trent Edwards has done an amazing job leading that offense. And Buffalo lately hasn't been known for having a powerhouse offense, but Trent Edwards has completed over 70% of his passes. Marshawn Lynch has gotten into the end zone a couple of times. And going back to Trent Edwards, the one thing, he hasn't thrown an interception yet. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions on the season. And, of course, that defense is going to keep them in every game they play.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is because, they're able to move the ball on offense, and that defense is keeping them in games, holding Jacksonville to only 243 total yards. So it was a pretty impressive win for them, I think, being able to, compete against that top tier, because Seattle and that entire NFC West is, a little debatable where they are right now. But either way, the Buffaloes definitely look like they're solidifying their spot alongside the New England Patriots at that top of that division. So we'll see. I think this could be a very close race by the end of the season. Maybe a game or 2 separating these 2 teams. It wouldn't be the same if Brady was there, of course. But either way, I think Buffalo's starting to make their move after an impressive season last year where they were much improved, and I think they're just getting better. So, as it stands, though, it's still the Patriots' division to lose up until they get beat. Tune in next time on our next edition of the NFL NBA Rectable.